Hi, thank you for coming to WPI for Industry Insights for 2026 Showfest. To start off, could you introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Phil Foudray. I've been here in the game industry for almost 20 years now, and I got started when I was looking for my first gig and got it in Austin, Texas, working on The Incredible Hulk. I was doing mission scripting, I was doing all sorts of different things that they just needed that came up, and ended up getting into systems design, getting into a bunch of other projects after that one. Now I call myself a product manager because that is the evolution of game systems design into like the business aspect of what you're building and why. And I've worked in console developers, mobile developers, startups for the past few years, and have a consulting business.
Yeah, what are you currently consulting on? What projects are you currently working with?
So I just finished up with a startup last year that was building a world generation game that could take a prompt and build something out of that, whatever you describe. And I'm actually just looking for my next gig right now. I'll be doing a bunch of updates on my LinkedIn and, looking for product management, system design, all that kind of stuff.
Sure, makes sense. What was the project you worked on that you felt was the most rewarding to you?
Interesting. I think when I first moved here to Boston to work on Dungeons and Dragons Online at Turbine, the game had already been running for a long time and had years of like legacy design and code and all sorts of stuff that I was picking up, and it already had a fan base that just loved the game and was super passionate about it. And picking that up and trying to modernize it, trying to add on new things that they were excited about, going into going into the Forgotten Realms from Eberron, and modernizing things so that we could add on new features, adding on all sorts of DM systems that allowed the content designers to do cool things. Improving the performance of it was a lot of fun. It was like going and work. It's kind of like working on a classic car. When you work on something that's been around for a long time, it's very rewarding to have a fan base that gets excited about any changes that you make to a game that they already love.
Yeah.
And it's a fun challenge to kind of learn about things that have been around for like a long time and then figure out how to use them and adapt.
Yeah, you get that like much faster responsiveness. I feel like a lot of the game development process, you're kind of making something and you have a vision, or the team leads have a vision. You're like hoping that when it gets sent out, the world accepts it.
Yes.
But like you have like kind of the different experience with a game like that, where like you said, you're going into the old model and getting that response from the players.
Yes.
I feel like that must be like phenomenally different. It must be really cool.
It's very satisfying, and it's very different than what I ended up doing next, which is like building a team during COVID, working remotely, building a startup, from scratch, and figuring out how to train people up and run a company with Zoom calls and Slack, and how to hire a good team of new talent versus like experienced people who could like drive the ship, and how to build mobile games, which I hadn't done before, which was very, very different.
To that effect, how have you seen sort of the industry shift since you like first started with some of like your older projects into like the COVID times, and now we're in like sort of a post-COVID era?
Yes. When I first started, I was a PC gamer getting into console, learning how that worked, and that was, a big deal. Was thinking about what console generations were coming out. We're trying to figure out how to support the previous generation, like the PS2 and Wii era, as well as the next gen consoles, and how to make different versions of the game that can work on both of those, technology stacks, which was dramatically different. And we made very different SKUs of the game for that. So that was a fun challenge that required a large team of people at a big company that specialized in the hardware. From there to kind of the era of mobile games, doing the MMOs in the middle, was very different because mobile games have such a different business model most of the time.
Right.
Specifically, looking at that as we were doing it, needing to build something that you can validate with focus testing before you actually launch it, in a way that allows you to raise enough money to then do the marketing to put it at the top of the App Store so it has a chance of even getting noticed.
Yeah.
You have to be able to validate that enough to raise millions of dollars, essentially, to say this game's going to sell this well. You put $1 million into it, you're going to get 1 million times, whatever your conversion rate is. And then now, looking at everything that can be done with all of the latest tools, there's such a different look to the industry. The team sizes are looking very different. The tools are better than ever for small teams to be able to build things that are really high quality, but the big studios are hiring so many less people that building your own thing is, kind of the most attractive thing at the moment. Is
Sure.
Going and building stuff with really, really powerful tools, from the modern game engines to all of the third-party things and libraries that you can access nowadays.
Absolutely.
And all of the knowledge and resources out there. It's easier than ever to learn about anything and then make it work in a really short period of time and go from concept to execution, focus testing, play testing, and have something that's fun and you can actually put up on a platform that does a decent job of marketing it.
Yeah.
Without having to have a huge marketing budget, especially in things like Steam and Itch.
Absolutely.
That is really kind of the most attractive looking thing at the moment.
Yeah, and that kind of hits on my final question, which would be any advice to prospective developers. I'm obviously hearing it's very much a focus on what you can do now with your own skills and your own tech, or you in a small group of people. This is the time when you have the most people around you. Mm-hmm. Is there anything more you'd like to say on that, or another piece of advice you have for our students who are kind of graduating or looking into the industry?
Right. Obviously, there are studios hiring. There's a very competitive market out there. There are internships available where you can learn a whole lot. And there are jobs that you should definitely be applying to using projects that you made in school, but also thinking about the people that you met in school and the networks that you built and all of the people out there in the world that also want to build things. There are really good communities for that. From game jam communities to co-working communities, to actually ones that are specifically just finding people to build games with that might already be started that you could jump into.
Yeah, absolutely.
Those are all really good opportunities, and if you really want to build something that you kind of created yourself that has your mark on it, it's easier to do that now than ever, and that is a great thing to be doing while you are looking for a job that can turn into something successful and profitable if you build the right team of people and really kind of do your due diligence on focus testing, play testing, listening to your players, all of the stuff that you learn in school and you learn from the process, and just really trust the iteration.
Well, thank you so much. I think we're running low on interview time, but I hope you've been enjoying being at Showfest so far. I think this is a return
cool
for
projects.
you. Yeah, there's a lot of cool projects. I think we have 36 this year, or even more if you count the grouped projects. So,
yep.
But thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you.
How do we do on time? Okay. Hi, thanks for coming to Showfest this year for Industry Insights. Why don't you introduce yourself really briefly, and then you can talk about how you got into the games industry.
Should I look at you or over
Up to you.
there? Okay. So I used to be a radio DJ back in, I guess I started doing that in the 90s and did that for about 15 years. And that industry went through a lot of turmoil in the 2000s.
Yes.
And I was one of many employees to suddenly find themselves without work. And I had done a podcast about a MMO, Dungeons and Dragons Online, and it got pretty popular, if I do say so myself. And so those things coincided with me getting an opportunity to be hired by then Turbine through WB Games to be a community person for Dungeons and Dragons Online. And I was hired with a couple of people who were brought in to expand their community team back in 2010. And I've not left. The companies have changed. The development team has had obviously plenty of people come and go over the years, but I'm one of a core group of members that, and not a small group either, that has stuck with both Dungeons and Dragons Online or the Lord of the Rings Online pretty much since it started.
Yeah.
And I can't say I've done that because those games started before me, right? I was brought in from the community to be a community person. And then when we became Standing Stone Games, published by Daybreak Games in 2017, I was brought on as the community manager for both games. And so I've had that particular role since then.
Wow, nice. Okay,
Yeah.
so my next question was what you're currently working on, but that's
Yeah.
that's the
Yeah.
same thing. Could you speak more on being like a community manager? Like that concept to me is really really cool. That like you have like your ear to the pulse of like the games and like the players, and then you go to like a dev meeting. You're like, this is what the players want. Like, what does that look like?
It looks very similar to what you just described. I
Yeah.
think you really nailed the aspect of it being a bit of a nerve center in a lot of development teams. That's not always the case. Some tend to be maybe more external social media focused. Some tend to be more data, business information focused and internal focused. But in a lot of cases, including mine, it really is that middle ground between the development team and the community. And you just do the best you can to keep that flow of information going positively and constructively both ways. So it's everything from knowing, well, what do they like? Why do they like it? You know, how many of them like it? I see some people like it, how many? You know, all that kind of thing that you need as a business to be able to develop your product in a live game service successfully really finds its way through community one way or another. And then also we live in an era where, you know, it does happen that there are TV advertisements for video games and things, but we're not really, you know, it's recommendations and social media and all the soft word of mouth that really is where a video game tends to succeed or fail these days.
Yeah.
And so that further makes what you do as a community person important, because it could be a little soft to tie it directly to money, but it does. It means money.
Absolutely.
It means money and success.
More
So,
people interested, more people
Yeah.
buying, more people talking about it is always like a good thing for a project.
Yeah.
My next question, also kind of hard to answer because it's what project is the most rewarding for you to work on? Perhaps there might be some specific community action you took that was the most rewarding rather than like one of the two games you were working on.
Well, that's true. I probably can't, shouldn't pick one.
Yeah, right.
Let me think about that. It is often the anniversaries that are some of the most fun times.
Oh, I bet. That
The
makes
community
sense.
is often in a very good, happy mood. We're all celebrating. We tend to be in a position to be able to debut a lot of fun stuff around our anniversaries. And so some of the better times I've had has been those longer Twitch streams and YouTube channel streams and everything else. For the anniversaries. I'm going to say that's really good. Also in-game, or in real-life meetups, actually, like the PAX East, Gen Con, PAX West once, probably the fanciest thing I ever got to do was to go to Europe once for Gamescom.
That's awesome.
That was pretty sweet. And but being able to actually meet with the European players that in some cases I've seen or interacted with, at least as part of the community for years.
Right.
Years and years.
Yeah, it's like that idea of like
Yeah.
that friend like
Yeah.
6,000
Yeah.
minutes away from you or whatever. Okay, I think you started to hit on this when you were talking about like the sort of soft word of mouth compared to like TV advertisements, but like how have you seen the industry shift since you came in like a short while ago off the heels of like radio broadcasting into this
Yeah.
world?
That's a very good question. I think in many ways MMOs are a little bit of their own flavor in the space. So I don't know that the experience of an MMO business is necessarily going to translate to, say, someone trying to launch an indie video game on their own, for example, or the kind of multi-$100 million AAA budget game that Sony's
Absolutely.
releasing. I think those are very different spaces. I think the fact that all three of those spaces can exist and be successful without one being dominant, oh, and then there's a little bit over here. I think what we see is rather than in industry, we see, and this is often the case about player opinion as well, we see a cloud. You know, there's a spectrum in the video game industry, just like in life and everything, that there's more than one place that you can stand, and there's more than one thing you can do to be successful. And so the ability of people to have that ability really that didn't exist perhaps 20 years ago, whether it's because just simply the cost of bringing it to market was too much or technological or other reasons. So.
Yeah, I think that's actually like a beautiful picture to paint that like the world has like diversified our abilities like to be a solo dev or a small team compared to like not just like some big old company that like has to be directed. But maybe you'll get your opportunity for people to join. And relatedly to that, my final question is any advice for prospective designers or people looking to get into industry, people looking to do what you do even?
Hang in there, keep an open mind, and keep an eye out for opportunity. I think in a lot of cases, what you'll have the most success with is maybe what you're already doing. You know, it's what you're already working on. Maybe it's not. Maybe someone's going to, you know, that fairy one's going to come out and say, you get the fancy, awesome job. Maybe that's going to happen. But I think in a lot of people's cases these days, it's what you bring to the table. What can you do? Do you really need other people to do this? And if not, what does that look like? There's nothing at all wrong with wanting to work for a Standing Stone Games. We'd love to have you. And there is opportunity there, but I think many of the students today are entering a pretty challenging job market.
Absolutely.
Not just worldwide, but specifically in the video game industry. And so I think we're seeing a time of change. I don't know how radical it's going to be. I guess we'll all find out together.
Yeah.
But we are seeing an industry change, and that's expected. I mean, if you think about, you know, where I started in 2010, the idea of you could be a live game service and be celebrating your 20th anniversary, which Dungeons and Dragons Online did this year, unthinkable.
Yeah.
Unthinkable in 2006.
Right.
I mean, can you imagine a game still having an active development team from 1986 to 2006? No.
No, and I've played games from
Yeah,
86. But
yeah,
like,
you got it printed on CD in the 90s or something, and then you moved on to the next
Yeah,
thing, and you had 6 months if you were lucky.
the hardware
You know?
changes are really, really crazy. Yeah, we've
And-
seen a lot of changes
yeah.
in this industry for sure.
And although we've seen tons of innovation on that over the past 15 years, fundamentally, I think some of the underlying business structures have stayed fairly venture capitalist funded, fairly big budget stuff.
Yeah.
And I think we may be on a cusp of some splintering, not dissimilar to the way people listen to music and radio, right? There was
Yeah.
a radio station, now people do listen to radio, but the vast majority of people listen to whatever they want because
they're
they're
streaming
choosing
it or
it
something
or
like that,
streaming
yeah.
it, right? And so I think we're in some ways we're going to an era where the margins are going to be more difficult. It's going to be very hard to be successful with a very expensive game, and it's going to be very hard to get noticed as a small game. But that opportunity will still exist.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming. I hope you've been enjoying Showfest so far.
Yeah.
We really appreciate you doing an interview. That's
Yeah,
time
thank
for
you.
us. So,
Awesome.
yeah. So hi, thank you for coming into Industry Insights for Showfest 2026. Why don't you start by introducing yourself for me?
Sure. Well, thanks for having me. My name's Emma Lowry. I graduated WPI on the IMGD Tech Art track back in 2021. I work at Petrichor now. I worked at Hackjack for a couple years after I graduated. So I've worked on like stuff like Pigeon Simulator, which was kind of a fun, big comedy roguelike game. And now at Petrichor, we did like Mythic Realms, so we do a lot of VR stuff now. VR, XR, all that good stuff. I work a lot of different projects. We're kind of all over the place at Petrichor. We always got something new going on.
I see. Well, can you tell me like what part of the process you are on for like the dev teams you work on?
Sure, yeah. All right. I know, I probably should have mentioned that. Well, so I graduated with Tech Art.
Yep.
So I've got like a background mostly in character modeling.
Okay.
That's what I started with. So I specialize with just character design, character modeling, but I'm kind of also a generalist. I kind of hop around and do whatever they need me to do, or whatever a project needs from me. But characters is my happy place. I like characters the most, so I do a lot of rigging and animating now, and just
Nice.
kind of anything that comes up.
I assume you've like spread your wings into like many different tools and like whatever. What's your favorite one to model in?
So I work in Blender now, but I used to work in Maya, and I still prefer Maya.
Yeah.
I think. Yep. I don't know. I have a love-hate relationship, I think, with both of them for different reasons.
Yeah.
But
I think that's common.
yeah. They're both, like Blender is really good at certain things, and Maya is like better at certain things. It kind of just depends on what you're working on,
Yeah, this makes sense. So you're kind of bouncing between a lot of projects while you've been working with Petrichor. So it might be hard for you to answer this one, but what project did you work on that was the most rewarding?
I think Mythic Realms has still been my favorite. So that was like our biggest like original title. So it's like this big like mixed reality roguelike RPG. So you have your VR home base where you do all your crafting and stuff, and then you go out on expeditions in the room in mixed reality. And so it's like that kind of cycle. But it was like a lot of characters, a lot of creatures, a lot of equipment. It was like all the fantasy stuff, and so that was a lot of fun for me because that's like my favorite kind of stuff to make is like the medieval fantasy and the characters, and they all have personalities and stuff. I think that was the most rewarding for me so far.
Yeah,
Was
they're
that
like
one.
the classic fantasy.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, exactly.
You,
I got
you have
that.
that vision right from the beginning,
Yes,
right? Yeah.
yes, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I know, but some of my favorite stuff is some of my favorite games are like things like Dark Souls and like all the fantasy RPGs, you name it, Skyrim, whatever.
Yeah.
That's what I grew up on, and so yeah, it's always fun to be able to take those passions and make something with it.
Absolutely. So you've been in the industry for like 5-ish years now. How have you seen it kind of shift since you first got in out of WPI and then, moved between the two companies and now working at Petrichor?
I mean, it's felt different since the big bad like layoff collapse of 2023.
Yeah.
So that's when actually Hackjack went down, was those around that time. So it's definitely has felt different. It's like everyone's kind of mood about the industry was very shaky for a while. It felt like everyone was kind of nervous and like, ooh, there are people out of work for like a long time now, and everything just kind of felt less certain. I think there's been some recovery, like the kind of general feeling about it has been getting a little bit better, which is nice to see. But yeah, that felt like that was a weird time for
There was
everybody.
like a shake up in the team dynamics kind of.
I don't know team dynamics because I went from one team to a different team
Sure.
in that time, so it wasn't like I was with one team as that all happened.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So I can't really speak to that, but
Okay.
I imagine it was like really rough at studios that maybe like cut a lot of their staff during that time, and it was like that shakes up the team dynamic,
But there was like a level of anxiety on the new team that you got to, or?
For me personally, thankfully, not really. Everything has been like pretty stable.
Nice.
But I've had friends at bigger studios who have talked about it feeling not so stable, and it's
Yeah.
like, ooh, when is the next round of like instability coming, and so there's always that like that anxiety, which, like I said, it seems like has been getting a little bit better from what I can tell.
Yeah.
But of course, I don't know,
No crystal balls.
right. And also some of the big studios just did more rounds of layoffs and whatnot.
Yeah,
So
it's,
it's
like,
never
always
ending.
coming.
Yep.
So I feel like you kind of give like a little bit of a hopeful vision, saying that like you feel stable and you see the stability kind of coming. But of course, there is like the lived reality. We never know what's coming. Do you have any advice for people who are graduating this year, kind of looking like you were 4 or 5 years ago? Like, what should they be looking to do? What should they be focusing on?
I would say do be hopeful. There are a lot of job listings being posted. You see them come in for like work with indies. Like there's some really good resources that post about job listings. Focus on portfolio, because as long as your portfolio and your body of work is solid, you can feel a lot more confident and a lot safer, I guess, moving around looking for positions. That's kind of like your rock, right? Is like having all of that stuff assembled. So the
Yeah.
more of your work that you keep assembled and keep updated, I think the more comfortable you'll probably feel.
A level of confidence.
Yeah, a level of confidence. I don't know. I haven't been in it long enough to have better advice, unfortunately.
I think that's great
but-
advice, like having a skill set and being confident in that and bringing that to the world and saying, I'm able to do this, you should hire me, is like
Yeah.
kind of the attitude people need, right?
Yeah, just stay optimistic.
Yeah, for sure.
People are always going to want games, and I feel like there's been a sort of mood shift towards indie games, especially recently, especially with all the big studios doing the layoffs and
Yeah.
kind of doing shady stuff here and there that
Yeah.
nobody appreciates. So as, the big studios have been kind of like, all over the place back and forth. Gamers seem to really like indie stuff right now, so
Absolutely.
look for opportunities there and become a part of that community.
Sure, yeah. Well, we're a little bit over time, but thank you so much for everything.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I hope you're enjoying Showfest and everything so
Yeah,
far.
it's been awesome. Yeah, all the work is amazing.
Great, thanks. All right,
All
so
right.
hi, thank you for coming to Showfest for 2026 Industry Insights. To start off, could you just introduce yourself?
Sure, I'm Charlie Rude. I'm a technical animator. I've been working in the industry for about 20 years, I guess.
Mhm.
So,
And can you speak on how you got into the industry?
yeah, so I was an animation student, so I was actually just an animator when I started. And I started in broadcast animation, worked on some like Adult Swim, TV shows and stuff. And that's where I started, but I realized that was with, you have like television seasons, so that things are not always stable. You don't know if seasons can be renewed and whatnot, so you're kind of like out of work in between seasons. And I realized that's not where I wanted to go. But I had then friends who also, they were starting their own little outsourcing company for games. And that's when I decided to join them in that. And we were just doing little outsourcing stuff for like mostly mobile games, which were fairly new at the time. But that got me in the door to like game development. And then over time, from there, I got into social gaming because that was when the social gaming boom started to happen. And then from there, back to mobile games again. So I did that for quite a few years, and then eventually I decided I wanted to end mobile gaming and go into more console type gaming, and that's where I got into Unreal development, and now I'm working on Fortnite with Epic Games. So I don't, as in the contractor though.
Okay. Yeah, my next question was going to be what project are you currently working on? So you're contracted for
Yeah,
Fortnite
yeah.
right now?
So I actually work for a company called Agora Studio.
Mhm.
Primarily does animation for various studios and stuff. And our biggest client is Epic Games. So I'm on the emotes team there. We're touching like all the emotes from Fortnite to Lego Fortnite and Sidekicks.
Did you see the emotes?
Yeah, the emotes.
Oh, that's awesome. That's really, really cool. This might be challenging to answer since you've had so many different experiences from mobile here to Fortnite, but what was the project that you worked on that was the most personally or professionally rewarding for you?
I honestly like what I'm doing right now.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun. I really like, it's a very large group of people, a lot of animators, and I don't know, it feels rewarding. It's like everything kind of ties together here. I'm able to, because I do everything from like animation implementation to setting up scenes for animators and like really like debugging things in Unreal for people, for everybody. It's like, I kind of touch everything. So, and also rigging, I don't know if I mentioned rigging. So I feel like everything I've learned over the years have kind of like helped out where I am right now. So.
Because it's like a synthesis of a lot of
Yeah.
stuff. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
That's really awesome. So you've been in the industry for like 20 years or so. You've seen a couple different sides of it, again, from mobile gaming all the way to here. How have you seen sort of like the industry kind of change as like a general like feel?
Oh gosh, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
like I guess I've seen a lot. So like
Yeah,
I've
you
seen
have.
like the mobile games like come out of nowhere and then like it turned into social games, but that kind of like social games meaning like Facebook games where that's and then that kind of petered out, went right back to mobile again, and mobile like skyrocketed. So it's just I don't know. Like for me, it's like I definitely prefer like PC and console games. Like that's
Yeah.
where I prefer to play and stuff. I know the biggest thing is like AI now, so like that's changing things, where the direction
Sure.
of the future. I feel like there's always a change around the corner. Like I'm always seeing it.
Yeah, I think like you can obviously speak on it a bit more than I can, but like our industry has always seen like a new technology causing
Yeah.
a major change.
Yeah.
Like in mobile is like a very salient example, but
Oh,
like
yeah.
even going from like little cartridges that hold like
Yeah, yeah,
megabytes to like
exactly.
CDs to like now people like just buy digital versions of their games on their console.
Right.
It's like a completely different experience from like me as a kid going to GameStop, right? So I don't think like change is necessarily like crazy, but I think like lately people have been feeling a bit more like insecurity. Is that like a new phenomenon for you, or would you say that's like something that's maybe a bigger word?
Yeah, I guess it's new. I mean, I think it's always been there. Like games have always had that kind of a problem, but it's probably more so now. And maybe it's the blame of AI. Like that's taken over things, and not that just that, like the economy too. Everything's just kind of touching it in some aspect. But it has its ups and downs. Like there's swings with gaming. So sometimes you have the down times, but other times things are taking off and people are hiring like crazy. So
Yeah, that makes
Yeah.
sense. And then that sort of kind of leads into what I'm going to ask you next. My final question: do you have any advice for like our students who are graduating this year and like looking to become prospective designers or developers?
yeah, I'd say like the biggest thing is like stay curious. If you see something like maybe you see a game you like and you don't know how something was made, and figure it out. Like or if there's something you just want to learn something, like just stay curious and always try to stay on top of things, and that'll always put you ahead when you're like looking for work.
I really like that advice. I think like a lot of people are talking about like, oh, like, you know, stay with what you know or be a solo dev or whatever. But
Yeah.
like the idea of like critically questioning the games we play and like how they're made is like such a fun way
Yeah,
of
I mean,
like,
it helps you as a
engaging.
solo dev, helps you as like, you know, working with a large team. Like you're gonna know things, you're gonna want to figure out that curiosity will help you.
I love that. Thank you so
Yeah.
much. That's my final question. So it concludes our interview. But I hope you've been enjoying Showfest so far. I think you just arrived,
Yeah,
but you have
just
time
arrived.
to jump around and see the fun little projects that we have going on.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
And you're welcome to look at the camera at me, whatever feels comfortable. Nice.
Okay.
So, hi, thank you for coming to Showfest 2026 for Industry Insights.
Hello.
Could you just introduce yourself really quick?
Yes, hi, my name is Kate Olguin. I'm currently a game designer at Other Ocean Interactive. I'm WPI class of 2020. I am also a board member for local game dev nonprofit Boston Game Dev, so creatively named. And I guess in 2025, I was on Forbes 30 Under 30 for being one of their special little guys. Cool. But yeah, mostly game designer and WPI alum.
Nice. Glad to have you back at WPI. What projects are you currently working on? I know you touched on it briefly.
Yes, okay. So right now, the main one is I'm the lead designer for a game called Four Penny Coffins. It's a social deduction, like murder mystery investigation game inspired by Jack the Ripper. And so like the idea is that in addition to the regular kind of social suspicions you'd get from something like Among Us or like Werewolf, you actually have to collect evidence and present it like you're Phoenix Wright. And if you're an evil bad guy, you can tamper with it to frame other people. So I work for a studio that is a AA studio based in Prince Edward Island. I'm their only full-time US employee. And so I'm the lead designer for that title, but I've been there in February. It will have been 5 years since I've been there.
Wow. Yeah, that's most of the time since you left the
Yeah,
university.
yeah.
So you've been on that team for a while, but what projects have you worked on that was like the most rewarding for you, either professionally or personally?
Oh my gosh. I've worked on Other Ocean is a studio that does like a combination of their own proprietary stuff and also work for hire. So one of the big projects that I worked on that was my first one with a major IP was a game called The Walking Dead Betrayal. That game did not perform very well, so probably very few people have heard of it. But that was similarly, it was a social deduction game. Other Ocean loves social deduction. It was a social deduction game except set in the world of The Walking Dead. And that was my first time working with a big IP. They actually flew me out to Comic-Con to like interview with press and stuff and be in their like big like fishbowl booth or whatever. And so like that was a pretty big milestone because it was like the biggest project at that point. But definitely another highlight of mine was incidentally my MQP, the Call of Karen. Which was a game about a 1950s suburban housewife whose home is invaded by Cthulhu. And that one ended up just kind of accidentally going pretty viral. It was free on Steam. It got over 100,000 downloads. There's playthroughs that have over like 4 million views. And that was pretty wild. So that was like definitely like a highlight before getting into the industry. And since getting into the industry, I've done all sorts of things and do my own like solo dev on the side.
Yeah, that's really awesome. Sorry, I'm losing my train of thought.
You're
It's
good.
so cool that you have like 100,000 downloads. I think I saw somewhere that said 200,000 on like the website at this point, but that's just amazing.
I'd believe it. I haven't checked in a moment.
Yeah, for sure. How have you seen the industry change since you got into it? Like you get into it end of 2020, that's like COVID times, and then we're in the post-COVID era and AI era. Like, what have you seen like sort of shift among like either the teams you've been on or the people you're in contact with?
How long can my tangent be?
I think there's like 6 minutes of interview time left.
I'm gonna try to not speak too fast, and I'm gonna try to go hit all the very juicy points that you've mentioned.
Sure.
So I graduated in 2020. This was during a period where hiring was starting to slow down because nothing happened in 2020 that would cause that. However, video games as a whole received a bump in sales during 2020 because so many people were in their homes and playing video games, especially playing online. So many studios started to ramp up their hiring like crazy to capitalize on that bump, and also because many people at the top kind of especially in some of the bigger studios, got dollar signs in their eyes and didn't think anything was going to change. And then things did change. So now the industry has kind of had to have a contraction has had a contraction to kind of recorrect. I hate to say correct because it results in people losing their jobs. There's nothing correct about that.
Right.
But like to return back to pre-COVID like video game growth levels. So when I was hired at Other Ocean, that was 2021, I did some contract work off and on throughout 2020, but then didn't get hired like full-time at Other Ocean until 2021. That was when Other Ocean themselves were doing their own kind of like hiring up, and now we're kind of on the downslope again. So that's what I've been seeing personally. That's what I know a lot of other folks have been seeing. But it's actually a combination. Or the industry, I think it's no secret that at least especially big companies and even like AA and indie companies, everyone's suffering from a lack of like funding. Job stability, even more so than usual. Like anyone who's in the games industry would tell you that it's unstable. It's people who have been in the games industry for years are saying that it's more unstable than usual. And part of that is because, or at least business developers who are smarter than me have told me that part of that is because investors have gone through multiple rounds of game development funding based on like the latest kind of tech hype thing, and each of them has returned very little like ROI. And just turned into a money pit. Conversely, or maybe not conversely, because it's still not easy for indies out there, but we are seeing more solo and like extra small team projects that are starting to ramp up. Anecdotally, I know some colleagues in the industry that I just talked to earlier this week who are starting to get like funding for their like 1 to 4 team projects. One of them said like, oh, it's like been the best year that like we've actually had, and they've been at it for, I don't know, like I think like at least 4 years. Yeah. So it's interesting to see how things move along. And it's also stressful to be in it.
Yeah, for sure. Since you're talking about sort of like the experience of being in it, this tethers to like my final question. Like, do you have any advice for like our students who are graduating like now like 6 years after you had and like going into like a similar industry? Like, what could you speak on like that experience they're gonna go into, or how they could best serve themselves?
It's a very different industry now than when I went into it, but there's still a lot of stuff that does apply overall. I think honestly the most important thing is to just make games, which I mean like seems so basic, right? But I think there are a lot of people who like make games, and if you're not interested in making games on your own or in a small team, build up your portfolio. But making games really is like, we're seeing a lot of examples. Each game, and when you release each game, even if you have a lot of like marketing put into it, but especially if you don't have much marketing put into it, which is going to be the case with just about any like non-published like small game or student game or whatever. Each one is like a pull of like, the one-armed bandit. Like you never know what is going to resonate with people. That was something, I mean, the Call of Karen, like I think it was a good game, but the reason that we got picked up was like total luck, basically.
Yeah.
I've seen like other people who have like, there's similarly, like one of the people I was talking about who got funded this past week, similar thing. They had been working on a bunch of games, and this one just happened to be like played by Markiplier.
Right, yeah.
Exactly. You never know what's going to resonate with people. Like you can do your best guess, and if you're trying to be business minded, you should. You could do your best guess. But each game you release will teach you something, which is incredibly valuable, and like has another shot of like resonating. And if it doesn't, then you've learned something. And it'll teach you both about what you like to do. It'll teach you about the landscape of releasing games. It will teach you about like your own working styles, and it'll just teach you what you like about the process. I love video games. I want everyone who wants to make video games to be able to make that successfully. That's like part of why I come back here, is because I care a lot about other people being able to follow their dreams in that way, because I'm really grateful that I got to do that, and that I'm getting to do that still. And I think that like the best thing that people can do for themselves is to just like make things, and ideally make things you love.
I really like that like message of like just generate content. Like I feel like it's hard to like be portfolio minded in school, because you're supposed to be like academically minded.
Absolutely.
And like the culture, at least at like a school like this, very science focused. And like really it's important as designers to design. And like you said, it teaches you a lot. So thank you so much for all of that. I think we're just running up on our time here, but I hope you've been enjoying Showfest so far as a returnee.
It's been great. The games are so good this year.
Yeah, they're always better every year, right?
The games are better every year.
Yeah. Except last year was the best because that was my year.
Last year was really good. What was yours?
Much to do to say I do. I was the one.
Oh, that one was really good. I liked that one.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know you put that in.